Hello everyone, my name is Navaneeta. I am working as a Boomi developer at TJ Software Solutions. In this video, I am going to explain you about the OData API. So let's get started. By the end of this video, you'll get to know what is OData API and why actually we need that, and how to expose or implement OData API in Boomi, and how to consume that exposed API using a tool called as Postman. So OData stands for Open Data Protocol. It's like a subset of REST API, which will allow for SQL querying capabilities. It defines best practices for building and consuming REST APIs. So why we need that OData API? We already have a REST API. So whenever you want to access the data only you want, you have to use OData API, and you have to make some specific requests to get a single data item. It will provide some of the query options in order to filter the data. You can also get the metadata of that actual data. Whenever you see any API endpoint, there will be a protocol, means HTTP or HTTPS, followed by the base path and the resource path. But when it comes to the OData API, there is a one more option, which is query options, which will be used to filter the data. So you need to write the SQL-like queries in the URL itself in order to filter the data. There are many query options available for OData API. Some of the query options are order by, filter, top, select, skip. There are also some other query options like format, inline count. So this order by is whenever you want to arrange the records of the rows in either ascending or descending order, and you want to get that as response, then you have to use a dollar. Dollar is like a sign and followed by order by equals on which field you want to arrange the orders and whether you want to arrange in ascending or descending order. If you are not specifying anything, it will arrange the records in ascending order itself. This filter is like, if you know about the SQL query language, then it works same like the where clause. Like you want to get the records who are male, and it will provide some operators. Like you have to write dollar filter equals the field name, and this EQ means equals, gender equals male. And you have some operators like less than. For less than, we have LT. For less than or equals, we have LE. Same like greater than, GT. Greater than or equals, GE. And for not equals, NE. These are the some of the operators. So coming to the top. Top is whenever you want to get only the first 10 records, then you just have to specify dollar top equals to 10. That's about the top query option. This select is same like the select in SQL. There are some numerous columns. You want to get only the ID, name, and the salary and designation. You just have to write ID, comma, name, comma, salary like that. And you want to skip only the 10 records. You want to get from the 11th records. Then you have to use dollar skip equals 10. Then you will get the remaining records after 10. These are some of the query options available. Some of the differences between REST and OData API are REST is having a limited bandwidth, which is best suited for lightweight applications. OData is having higher bandwidth and REST is stateless. OData is stateful. In the REST, the caching is possible, but in OData, caching is not possible. So whenever you want to implement the OData API in Boomi, you need an API service component. In that, we have a OData tab, and you also need the linked integration processes in order to create an OData endpoint. So there are some two key aspects which you need to follow. Like whenever you want to use a get entity by key action, you need to provide the key in the integer format itself for OData. And for OData, you have to specify the XML profile with the namespaces. It will not accept the empty namespaces. So let's get into the Boomi platform to expose an OData API in Boomi. As I said before, in order to expose an OData API in Boomi, we need to create an API service component. It's a component which can be deployed individually, and it is used to expose sets of REST, SOAP, and OData API endpoints. It consolidates all the API endpoints into a single unit. So you can see in the general tab, we need to give the values for the mandatory fields. So let's jump into the OData tab. So in order to create the integration processes, we have 5 options: create a new process, use an existing process, and etc. I'm using this option because I have already created the process. I'll show you that. Whenever you choose OData, there are 2 actions available. Get entity by key means only get entities means query, means you'll get the old data. Let's choose the process. I'll show you the process. I'm using Starship with Web Services Server in order to expose an OData API. And the connection of this connector is managed by Atom's shared web server. And we have only one action available, listen. In the operation, we have object, XML object. This is the entity name. And as we are not expecting any input, I'm using none. We are sending the response. I'm using single XML object. I'm fetching the data from the database by using database connector. We have to configure the connection action and the operation details. After that, I'm just doing the transformation by using a map component from database to XML. We are doing the transformation and we are returning the XML as a response to the calling source point by using return documents. This is about the process. Click on finish. In order to create a process for get entities, choose get entities and select the process. So this process is start shape with web services server, means we are exposing an API. As we are not expecting any input, I'm choosing none. We are sending the response in the form of XML. Getting the data from the database by using database connector and just doing the transformation from database to XML and using the return documents to return the response. So what's the difference between get and query action? So in get, we need to pass something in order to filter the data. You want to get only the single data item by using get. So we have to pass the URI parameter, which is coming from the dynamic process property. And you need to specify the field name, param underscore ID. This is the only difference. Let's go to the API service component. As I said before, OData API accepts the XML profile with the namespaces. You need to create an XML profile. In order to create the namespaces, go to the types, click on add namespace and give a proper name and click on add complex type. Give the root element, add any number of fields you want. Give the name for that fields. Go to the data elements, click on root element, choose the type name as root and the namespace as content. You can see the fields are added by default. And one more thing, I said OData accepts the key in the form of integer itself. You can choose any field from these and choose the data type as number. This is the configuration of the profile. For point, I said you have to choose any field as a key from the profile. I'm choosing ID because I have changed the data type to the integer to this ID field. This is all about the configuration of the API service component. We need to deploy these API service components. So in order to deploy, we need to create packaged component. Deploy it to the desired environment. In the same way, you need to deploy these both processes. This is all about exposing the OData API in Boomi. Let's consume this API. So in order to consume any API, you need the base path, resource path. So in order to get the base path, you need to go to the atom management. Click on your atom, shared web server. So whenever you want to use API service component, you need to choose the API type as advanced itself. Just copy this base URL. So this is the base URL. In order to get the resource path, go to the API service component which you have created. Path to OData is the resource path. Just concatenate it with the base path and hit that API. So now you are getting this XML object. This is the entity name. You can see it in the OData tab. This is the entity you are getting. So just copy this and pass it as a URI parameter. You will get the all records present in database. I'll show you the database. These are the fields which we have got in the response. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to get the metadata, you have to pass $metadata as a URI parameter. Now you can see you are getting the field names and the data type. For ID we have int, for name and gender we have string. If I pass XML object entity in the URI parameter, you are getting the all records. In order to get only the single record, we have to use parenthesis. Inside we have to pass the ID, which ID you want to get. Now we are getting only third one. I want to get the top 2 records. Just give $top equals to. You'll get only the 2 records. I want to get only the male records. In the database, you can see there are 3 female records and 2 male records. I want to get only the male records. Just give $filter equals gender eq male. You can see we are getting only the male records. And you want to skip first 2 records. Just use $skip is equals to 2. You can see you are getting from third records. Like this, you can pass many query options. This is all about consuming an OData API by using Postman tool.